So Trump vows to expand the death penalty if he gets reelected as president. And this is no surprise uh, that he would want to do something like this, being that he is a big fan of dictators who still use the death penalty, firing squads, and the such.
You're on the byline of the Rolling Stone report. What can you tell us about Trump's embrace of the death penalty?
Well, first, I must add that you got my last name beautifully. That was a wonderful Thai pronunciation of it, so thank you so much. Well, this is something that, as you teased during your monologue earlier, it's not something that we can observe in a vacuum when we're talking about what would Trump do if he reconquered the White House in 2024. Even though, given Trump's past track record, it might be tempting to sort of brush these things off as, oh, he's just spouting off. He has a graphic kind of B-movie understanding of the criminal justice system. This is just him talking to confidants in private and trying to sound like a tough guy. That may be the case if we didn't already have the first term of the Trump presidency, where he very much with, particularly with Attorney General Bill Barr, he did make some of these graphic and deadly desires reality. He and his administration carried out a historic execution spree during the final 6 months of his presidency, where he and his Justice Department executed more federal prisoners than the last 10 presidents before him combined.
And this is the kind of stuff that right-wingers really like a lot. They enjoy the death penalty because they think they should be able to control who has the say over somebody's life. They're all about control to the point of, being able to murder people, and they're totally happy about it.
This was something that was accelerated as even after he lost the presidency. So this is something we know that he is willing to do with his administration in the past in a big way. It's not just talk for him. And towards the end of his administration, he and his Justice Department did make moves to try to revive things. There were actual papers filed that had to do with, okay, here are ways that we could potentially try to bring back things like gallows and firing squads. But he wasn't able to consummate it because, of course, he lost the presidency to Joe Biden. He has not forgotten about this, and he really does, according to people we've spoken to who have spoken directly to the former president. This is something he really wants to bring back.
Ruth, Swinton raised some scary stuff, quite honestly. And we all are very familiar with Trump's praise of brutal tactics from dictators as his way of thinking about controlling the population. So what does this obsession with the death penalty tell you about how he views power?
Yeah, this is autocrats love to have people killed, and they're always trying to think of how to kill more people in an efficient manner. So he also had floated group executions. And Donald Trump is a very violent person. Let's not forget that he started his campaign in 2016 by saying that he could shoot someone.
Yeah, he said he could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and people would still vote for him. And yeah, he still has a lot of people that are willing to side with him no matter what he does, because that is also what they want as well.
And that wasn't taken seriously, so I'm glad that we're featuring this now. And one of the most revealing items in the reporting was that it was floated that he said, oh, perhaps we'll televise or we'll make these executions for public consumption. And this is exactly what autocrats do. They don't just, like Duterte in the Philippines, they don't just talk about executing drug dealers. They actually, Gaddafi, the Libyan dictator, used to put people on TV in televised confessions, and he would bring school children on field trips to sports stadiums to see people executed by hanging.
Oh, yeah, that kind of tactic, public executions, it's all about instilling fear amongst the populace. It's saying, look at this, if you, break my law, this is what's going to happen to you. And Trump is definitely big on that because for him, he is the law. So as president, or what he thought as president, he can do whatever he want, which for the most part he was able to. But he honestly just wants to be a dictator with sole authority to kill anybody at his whim. Does anybody remember that how much he praised the Chinese president for becoming president for life and said maybe we should do that here in America?
So it makes them feel powerful, it makes them feel in control, and it sets an example.
So Andy, that power and control is not just related to
Yeah, and he's all about anybody caught selling drugs should receive the death penalty. That would mean like millions of people would be put to death. That is an extreme amount of people just for selling a plant, or they would more likely like also put to death people using drugs. And it's just like it would just amount to a genocide more than anything else.
Capital punishment. We also saw the deadly consequences of Trump's lies on January 6th. So how do conspiracy theories sort of feed these deadly actions and the consequences that flow from, behavior like Trump wants to engage in?
Well, it really breaks down this myth that there is a world that happens strictly online where people are gathering, they're talking about everything from their favorite sports teams to, ways to get inside the U.S. Capitol during the certification of Joe Biden's victory back in January of 2021. I think there was a time when these online subcultures were treated as a sort of separate thing from the world that we all live in, the real world, the physical world. And the president's behaviors and the way that the former president's behaviors, now former, the way that those inspired his followers to first online and then in the real world act on those impulses, act on things like be there, will be wild, you've got to fight or you won't have a country anymore. We see how the president's rhetoric can inspire people to take drastic action, to take action that leads to their own imprisonment. I mean, what when I read great reporting like Swins and Patrick's and Rolling Stone, and I see this rhetoric that the president is putting out there, my mind immediately goes to not only how would Donald Trump, with another term in the White House, act on these policies based on what he's saying, but how are his supporters, how are his most animated followers out there taking matters into their own hands when their leader, a former president of the United States, is saying we should bring back firing squads, gallows, and guillotines? Because it is not just rhetoric with this president. It is not just rhetoric that lives only in the minds of people and lives online. There are real world consequences to all of this.
Well, we already got like right wingers who are wanting to like also do the same thing of putting all drug dealers and beating petty criminals, like Matt Walsh, who called for that like a week or so ago, saying, look at what Singapore has. They execute drug dealers. We should do the same thing. And it's like the mentality of a right winger is, kill people you don't like or you consider to be in some slight detriment to society,